Hey guys, today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started on Easter Sunday in 2017. While most residents of a quiet town in Oregon were preparing for family gatherings, Anna Repkina suddenly stopped responding to messages. Her phone went silent, and her friends and family back in Russia, with whom she always maintained close contact, began to worry. Her co-worker at a local cafe where Anna had recently started working noticed that she didn't show up for her shift, a stark departure from her typically responsible nature. Everything pointed to the fact that something had gone wrong. The last person to see Anna was her fiancé, Will Hargrove, a man with a mysterious past and many secrets. Anna Reina's story took an unexpected turn into December 2016, when she first traveled to the small town of High, Oregon just months. Before this trip, Anna and William Hargrove, a 27-year-old security guard from the quiet town, began communicating online. Their connection started on a dating website, but quickly evolved into video calls and long conversations. For Anna, accustomed to the fast pace and scale of Moscow High with its population of just about 150 people, seemed almost exotic at the time of their meeting. Anna was going through a difficult period. Her long-term relationship had ended abruptly, leaving her without plans for a future she had envisioned, and shaking her confidence while her life in Moscow appeared stable from the outside. Anna's inner turmoil was growing. She became more withdrawn, seeking solace in virtual connections. That eventually led her to Will. The trip to the U.S. was Anna's attempt to escape her familiar surroundings and find new happiness. The 10 days she spent with Will left a strong impression on her. He showered her with attention, giving her flowers, showing her local sights, and taking her to restaurants. Will seemed determined to create the perfect image of their future, together winning Anna over with his charm. Despite their cultural and lifestyle differences, Anna began seriously considering a move to the U.S. However, this trip was just one chapter in a much more complicated story rooted in her life back in Moscow. Just months earlier, Anna had no idea how drastically her life would change after the painful breakup with her long-term partner, whom she had believed was her soulmate. She decided to sign up for dating websites, discovering an entirely new world of connections with people from across the globe. Meeting Will felt like an unexpected blessing. His fascination with Russian culture and ability to speak some Russian helped bridge the gap between them. For Anna, these conversations became more than just a distraction. They gave her hope for a new chapter in her life. Yet her relationship with Will raised concerns among those close to her. Anna's friends and family cautioned her against making impulsive decisions, especially given the significant distance and cultural differences between their lives. They encouraged her to look for someone closer and more familiar. But Anna wasn't willing to listen. She believed there was something truly special between her and Will. Upon returning from her trip, Anna began planning her move to the United States, dismissing the skepticism of those around her. High, with its quiet and secluded atmosphere, started to seem like the perfect place to start over. At the time, she couldn't have imagined that this decision would mark the beginning of even more dramatic events that would drastically alter her fate. Meanwhile, Michelle grew increasingly concerned about Will's behavior. Not long ago, he had been spending more time with her, talking about their future. But by early 2017, things had changed. He started coming up with excuses to avoid staying home, often blaming work or the need to meet with friends. His attitude toward her became more distant, even though he tried to maintain an outward appearance of normalcy. Michelle's suspicions deepened when she came across a conversation on his phone in a language she didn't recognize. Unable to understand Russian, she couldn't grasp what Will was discussing. But her unease continued to grow. At the same time, Will was focused on planning Anna Reina's relocation, a woman he had met just a few months earlier, back in December 2016. He proposed to her, even though they had only known each other for 10 days. Anna, upon returning to Moscow, immediately began preparing for her move to the U.S. She completed the necessary paperwork, wrapped up her work commitments, and even started discussing the details of their upcoming wedding she was fully confident in. Her decision. Will, however, was carefully concealing his plans from Michelle. Their relationship had long reached a dead end, but the situation was further complicated by the fact that Michelle hadn't taken steps to finalize her divorce. Her husband was still living in the same house, adding to the tension. Will increasingly felt trapped in the situation and longed for a change. By January 2017, Will was actively looking for a place to live to prepare for Anna's arrival. He deleted their messages, avoided difficult conversations with Michelle, and tried to juggle his household responsibilities with his future plans. However, his behavior grew more withdrawn, which did not go unnoticed by those around him. Michelle, though deeply suspicious and lacking clear answers, chose not to escalate the situation for the time being. Her unease, however, remained. Meanwhile, Anna continued to look forward to her new life. She believed that moving to the U.S. would mark the start of a fresh chapter. Her preparations were progressing smoothly, and despite the doubts of her loved ones, she remained steadfast in her choice. Will, for his part, did everything he could to reinforce her confidence, promising that their life together in the U.S. would be happy and fulfilling. However, the tension surrounding them continued to build, setting the stage for events that would soon disrupt their carefully laid plans. In March 2017, when Anna Repkina crossed the ocean to start a new life in the United States, she could never have imagined that her arrival would intensify a long-standing conflict hidden beneath the surface of her fiancé. Will Hargrove's seemingly stable life Will greeted her at the airport with a smile, but within days Anna sensed that something was wrong. Their new apartment in Corvallis, sparsely furnished and rented, felt more like a temporary hideout than the start of a shared future. Will was frequently absent, claiming work obligations, leaving Anna alone to adjust to an unfamiliar culture. The issues had begun months before Anna's move, leading up to her arrival. Will's relationship with Michelle Chavez had become unbearably strained. Michelle, realizing she was losing, Will tried desperately to keep him in the home they shared with her husband. This unusual living arrangement created mounting tension by the day. Will increasingly used work as an excuse to leave while Michelle tried to exert control over him. She began noticing changes: more frequent phone calls, secretive texting, and Will's sudden need for privacy. When she discovered messages in an unfamiliar language on his phone, she chose not to confront him. Her fear of losing him outweighed her curiosity about the truth. Meanwhile, Anna, still in Moscow, was unaware of these complications. She focused on preparing for her move, inspired by Will's promises of a bright future together. His assurances of a happy life in America felt convincing. Anna completed her paperwork, said her goodbyes to friends and co-workers, and looked forward to starting a new chapter. However, she had already begun noticing Will's occasional emotional distance. His delayed replies to her messages were explained away as busyness, though. Deep down, she started to feel a growing sense of unease by the time Anna arrived. The tension in Michelle's home had reached a boiling point. Will no longer hid his intention to start a new life with Anna, though. He hadn't officially ended anything with Michelle. He left the house late at night, returned early in the morning, and avoided Sir Ayu's conversations. Michelle repeatedly tried to talk to him, but he reassured her each time that everything was under control. Her unwillingness to sever ties with her husband only added to the already complicated situation. After Anna's arrival, Will quickly rented a place to avoid direct confrontation between the two women. He made no secret of his plans to marry Anna, but his actions seemed disorganized. Anna, trying to acclimate to her new environment, struggled to understand why her fiancé was spending so little time with her. She began asking questions, but Will offered vague answers. He avoided discussing Michelle or the details of his past, leaving Anna increasingly confused. By April 2017, the relationship between Will Hargrove and Michelle Chavez had reached a breaking point. Their communication became filled with demands and threats, which had become a routine part of their interactions. Michelle insisted that Will immediately end things. With Anna Repkina, who had been in the U.S. for only a few weeks, she gave him an ultimatum: decide by April 19th, or their relationship would come to a permanent end. Anna still held on to the hope that her relationship with Will would stabilize. She tried to occupy herself, but the loneliness and growing suspicions began to erode her faith in their future. Before long, she noticed that Will was hiding something important: his frequent absences and reluctance to discuss their plans for life in America made her question just how sincere he had been from the start. Will himself was in a precarious situation. On one hand, he continued to reassure Anna of his serious intentions, while on the other, he tried to plate Michelle, promising her that he would resolve everything soon. In reality, however, he was taking no meaningful action. Meanwhile, Anna busied herself with wedding preparations. Her dress had arrived from Russia, and she eagerly anticipated their big day. She was unaware that behind her back Will was still engaging in a flurry of messages with Michelle, whose demands were becoming increasingly intense. Their exchanges had reached tens of thousands of messages, with Michelle bombarding Will daily with new ultimatums, threats, and pleas. Will in turn kept telling her that things would change soon. The situation escalated when Michelle came across photos of Anna on social media. What caught her attention was a ring Anna was showing off in one of the pictures for Michelle. This was the breaking point. She sent Anna a message revealing that Will was deceiving both of them. Anna was stunned. Will tried to defend himself, claiming that Michelle was his ex who couldn't accept their breakup. He insisted that she was emotionally unstable and was deliberately trying to sabotage their relationship. While Anna initially believed him, her conversations with Michelle left her with lingering doubts. Despite everything, the wedding preparations continued. However, on the day of the ceremony, things took an unexpected turn. Anna and Will, along with their witnesses, arrived at the venue for the registration, but the officiant never showed up. Will pretended to make phone calls to figure out what had gone wrong, but the calls were a facade. It was later revealed that he had been calling arcade centers instead of the county clerk's office and hadn't even applied for a marriage license. The day ended far from what Anna had envisioned on the way home, still wearing her wedding dress. Anna stopped at a McDonald's. Surveillance footage captured her ordering takeout, a moment that became a haunting symbol of her growing disappointment. Meanwhile, Michelle continued to escalate her pressure on Will. Her messages grew more aggressive, filled with accusations and threats. She demanded that he immediately end his relationship with Anna and come back to her. By April 18th, Michelle once again messaged Will, demanding a final decision. He responded by saying everything would be resolved by 6 p.m. The next day, she took his words as a promise that he would make his choice and decided to wait. On April 20th, 2017. Something happened in a wooded area near High that shook the small town. While walking along a trail, local residents stumbled upon the remains of a woman. Scattered around her body were black plastic bags, food wrappers, and cigarette butts. A single gunshot wound to the head was determined to be the cause of her death. At the scene, police collected everything that could be relevant to the case, including items that might belong to the perpetrator or passers-by. The site quickly became the focus of local media and a major criminal investigation. The day before, on Easter Sunday, Will Hargrove seemed to go about a typical day. However, his actions were riddled with contradictions. In the morning, he turned off his phone, cutting off contact with Michelle Chavez while she was at her mother's Easter gathering. She repeatedly tried to reach him, leaving voicemails that went unanswered, increasing her anxiety. Later in the evening, Will finally contacted her, claiming that his car had broken down and caused a delay. Michelle, although accepting his explanation, noted that he sounded off. His voice was tense and his tone hesitant. After their brief conversation, Will suggested they meet in He waited for her in the parking lot of a local store where surveillance footage captured him purchasing a bottle of Pepsi, a pack of cigarettes, and some candy when Michelle arrived. Their discussion began with her questions. She demanded to know why he hadn't answered her calls and where he had spent the day. Will assured her that everything was taken care of and that Anna Repkina was no longer a part of his life. He claimed that Anna had left after a heated argument and had packed her belongings. Michelle pressed for more details, but Will dodged her questions repeatedly, insisting that there was now nothing standing in the way of their being together. Afterward, they got into Will's car and drove to a secluded spot outside of town where their conversation continued. The night ended with an intimate encounter. In the vehicle following this, Will drove Michelle back to her car. She returned to her mother's house and resumed the Easter dinner, appearing relaxed and content. As her family members later recalled, that night Will headed into town, and his actions over the next several hours would become a crucial part of the investigation. Surveillance cameras captured him making a series of stops at one ATM. He withdrew $200 from Anna's bank account. Later, he visited a gas station where he filled his tank and went inside the convenience store. According to a store employee, Will appeared distraught, complaining about a fiancée who had allegedly left him. Even breaking down in tears, the employee comforted him with a hug after leaving. The gas station Will continued to withdraw money from Anna's account. He took out $600 at another ATM and then deposited the cash into his personal bank account. Later that evening, he used the funds to pay off his car loan in full, likely to avoid repossession the next day. The discovery of a woman's body in a wooded area near High raised more questions than answers. Evidence collected at the scene began to form a timeline that soon linked the death to Will Hargrove's activities. Investigators quickly focused on Ana Reina's phone, which was found during a search of Michelle Chavez's home. Michelle initially claimed the phone was hers, but later admitted that Will had given it to her. This revelation became a key piece of evidence. Using GPS data from the phone, police determined that it had been in the wooded area near Holly. About a month before Anna's death, the location was remote and rarely visited by locals, raising further suspicion. As part of their investigation, Will's friends shared details about his strange behavior. He frequently talked about wanting to go back and fix things, often referencing a specific date. April 15th, he had conducted online searches about the possibility of time travel and told friends he would sell his soul to undo a mistake. This unusual behavior caught investigators' attention. But the real breakthrough came from a man named Kevin Thompson. Kevin revealed that weeks before Anna's death, Will had borrowed a shotgun from him. Although Kevin thought nothing of it at the time, he noticed that the weapon was never returned. This detail aligned with evidence from the crime scene. Investigators found a spent shell casing that matched the type of ammunition used by the borrowed shotgun. Another piece of critical evidence was a receipt from a KFC restaurant found among the trash at the crime scene, dated the same day as Anna's death. The receipt revealed two transactions, one paid in cash, and another with a card registered to Kevin. When questioned, Kevin confirmed he had eaten at KFC that day with a friend. Will had paid in cash, but failed to dispose of the receipt, directly linking him to the area. Meanwhile, Michelle Chavez initially backed up Will's alibi, claiming they had spent Easter Sunday together at a local market. However, during a follow-up interview, she changed her story, admitting she had lied at Will's request. She now claimed she didn't know where had been that day, although Michelle denied any involvement in Anna's death. Her confession only deepened the investigators' suspicions. Will, meanwhile, tried to maintain a semblance of concern about Anna's disappearance. He sent messages to her phone, apologizing for the fight, hoping to give the impression that he didn't know what had happened to her. However, his behavior became increasingly bizarre in the days before his arrest. He spent more than $1,000 on video games, candy, and toys, including a Lego set. He later admitted to a friend that he did it to take his mind off things. Finally, police officially detained Will. During questioning, investigators presented him with evidence including trash from the crime scene, surveillance footage from KFC, and Kevin's testimony. Will pretended like he didn't understand anything, but the investigation was already heading toward denouement. On the day Michelle learned of Will's arrest, she was at her parents' house. Her reaction raised questions from the police. Despite the shocking news, she appeared indifferent and apathetic. This fact did not escape the attention of investigators, who began checking her location on the day of the murder. All the evidence pointed to the fact that Will was directly connected to Ana Reina's murder. However, questions remained about Michelle's role. Her footprints in the woods, the use of Anna's phone, and the initial confirmation of Will's alibi created a conflicting picture. Will's phone geolocation data confirmed that between 4:35 and 4:38 a.m. On April 16th, he was in the area where Anna's body was later found. In addition, at 4:30 a.m., he made a phone call to Michelle. The investigation suggested that this call may have been a signal related to his actions that night. The trial ended. In 2020, Will Hargrove was found guilty of murdering Ana Repkina and sentenced to life in prison with parole eligibility after 25 years. Despite pressure from prosecutors, Michelle Chavez was never prosecuted after the trial. Michelle faced negative attitudes from local residents. Many in High were convinced that she had something to do with the crime, even though she was never proven guilty. This tension drove her to serious mental health issues. In 2018, she attempted suicide, but the attempt was unsuccessful. Will, while incarcerated, set up a profile on a prisoner messaging site. In his description, he said that he spent most of his time in solitary confinement and wanted to communicate with people to share his thoughts. This elicited a mixed reaction from investigators, as it was through the dating site that he had once met Anna. This tragedy ended in a verdict for Will, but left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Anna Repkina left her life in Russia, trusting Will and hoping for a new life that ended in a death trap. This story shows how avoiding honesty and putting off decisions can lead to serious consequences, trying to hold relationships with multiple people at the same time. By manipulating their trust inevitably creates a destructive effect. Honesty and the willingness to take responsibility for one's actions are key elements of a healthy relationship, without which any bond is doomed to destruction. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.